presence and also your ability to communicate effectively to the public and, of course, that of the city of New Orleans. We have made some headway today. Very complicated situation. You know that rescue has been a top priority, and we do have information to provide you with this evening that is tied to a rescue operation. Chief.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Our USAW crews went in several times today. That area that we had discussed earlier this morning on the side of the building on Rampart. They were searching those voids, a very long, complex situation where you're searching with remote cameras and remote hearing devices. They did see some fluid. We've collected a sample of that and they've sent it to a lab for testing. We're not sure what it is, but we're taking this as part of our investigative process as we've described before. We also have the first victim, the first one that we identified on Saturday, actually the day of the incident. But we were unable to get to that person. We still are unable to. That area of the building is very, very precarious, and it's quite a distance from where they can actually get, but they can see a portion of the victim. We have managed to collect a sample. We're not sure if it's viable, but we will, using the remote method, we did that. We're sending that to a lab also. The goal is to try and obviously identify anything that we can identify and give family, at least that family, closure. The dogs were in. They did not. We sent 2 different types of dogs in. We did not have any live hits today. We will do another 1 or 2 complete sweeps top to bottom of the building tomorrow. We did have some hits in the area where we collected that first sample. So it's still a situation where we have not come to any definitive conclusions on the final person that's missing. But as the process goes, you see from these press conferences that we do day in, several times a day, it is a tedious and a dangerous process, and we'll continue doing it and to bring this thing to a conclusion for all the families involved.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, Madam Mayor, let me comment too, from an engineering side. So we talked this morning about all the different resources we're bringing in and how we're monitoring this building. We had a situation today with the crane near the back, the furthest from Canal Street, the one that appears to be the most damaged, actually moved. We're monitoring this with some pretty sophisticated equipment. We got engineers. It moved about an inch in one direction that we were not expecting, and it would not be just from normal wind deflection, and it did move back. It tells us that this thing is moving, and as we said, this is a very dangerous building. The engineers have told us so. Firefighters are taking measured risk to get their job done, but people need to understand that is the type of thing we're dealing with. You see the size of our evacuation zone, and that gives you the idea of the potential impact that we could face.
No, thank you, Chief. And we have also been monitoring the weather as we reported earlier this morning, and we do have updates as relates to that, which are precautions that we're taking. Director?
So we've been monitoring the wind all day from the weather station that we put up in the area on the building here. We experienced our first south winds today. They were not that strong, but the south winds are a concern with the way that second crane near the Iberville Street is positioned. We need to talk about the fact that we've been in contact with the Weather Service. There is a potential tropical disturbance out there off the Yucatan right now. It is tracking more towards our area and some of the models. They just upped to about 40% the chance of development. We're looking at a timeline. I spoke to Blizzards just before I came out here. Looking at a timeline of about Friday to Saturday. It's very early, but just saying this could be a potential tropical depression, maybe a tropical storm. They're looking more at the depression. But with that, you could expect south to southwest winds on this track, 20, 30, 35 miles an hour, and the rain that would accompany that. So this is obviously something that's very concerning to us, and that we will continue to follow extremely closely all through tonight, tomorrow, through the week.
Thank you, Colin. Dr. Begno, can you give us an update?
Yes, today we were able to deploy several levels of mental health resources. We have mental health counselors and those trained in mental health first aid that will be available
Yeah, traffic patterns, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, man. Traffic patterns are going to continue to be the same. We are continuously assessing and adjusting as necessary. We are thanking the public once again for the cooperation. We ask you, encourage you to continue to ride share, continue to carpool as much as possible. And if you can work remotely, work remotely. However you may be able to do it, we just ask you to please stay out of the area, continue to work with us with this. We have been very successful with the traffic flow thus far, and we are looking forward to continue this process. Thank you.
Thank you. And we will continue to remain focused also on the businesses that have been impacted in the area. I did sign a letter, presented it to the governor this afternoon as relates to small business administrative assistance. That will be forthcoming in terms of what comes from that. But the state, through the governor, has remained a true partner in this operation. So are there any questions in the time that you can?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The advocate?
Chief, you mentioned this morning that the engineers were having trouble coming up with a plan to stabilize the building in cranes. Are you any closer to a plan to do that?
We are not. If anything, it's gotten, it hadn't been the best news. That it doesn't appear that we'll be able to use cranes to stabilize this, to take this crane apart and stabilize it. So we're working on other operations and other ideas of how you secure it. We've looked at several different things and no conclusions yet. We need to kind of get some kind of consensus from we use what we call, technical specialists in any type of operation, whether it's a collapse underground or an explosion. Every single thing that we do, we got to bring, when it's not something that we have the expertise in, we bring in the people that do that. And we have, as I said, we have the finest experts, we believe, in town. They have tons of experience with these types of incidents, and we have not come to a conclusion as to how to mitigate this situation. So it does remain a very dangerous building.
Fonse?
I just wanted to clarify on the fluids that were found for one person. Is that for two people?
We found a fluid in one area that we were searching this morning that we talked about. In a totally different area, we have the person that we found on Saturday. Fluids that we found today in the area that we're searching for the person that's unknown. We don't know what the fluids are. It was in a remote area with a camera. We had spotted something that the guys thought could mean something. So they sent remotely. They sent a reach into there, a apparatus to reach into there with a swab, get a sample, and send it to a lab. And we'll progress from where that is. If it's something human, we'll take the next steps to identify who that person would be.
Chief, just to clarify, you suspect it could be bodily fluids, and you sent them off for DNA tests. Is that correct?
Correct. Well, for identification. If identification says it's human, then it would be DNA, and then who's DNA?
Can you describe color?
Are y'all releasing any names at this point of the people you are searching for inside?
Any names that get released will obviously, in the first case of the person we recovered, we come from the coroner's office, and anybody who we have not confirmed, we won't be releasing their names.
And you kind of explained the protocol, God forbid, if something were to come down, what is the plan if something does come down?
Well, you see the evacuation zone we have. That's why that plan is in place. The evacuation zone is our mitigation for if it comes down. And if you've been observing the scene, you see no one enters this. No one enters this without going through a single checkpoint, their names, their business, who they're working for, and what is their business in that area.
And that's documented on ingress as well as egress from the impact zone.
Do y'all know if someone was inside a crane operating it before the collapse happened?
That'll be part of the investigation. That's logs and stuff there.
WWL?
You said the crane moved about an inch. Doesn't sound like a lot, but
it does not sound like a lot, but it shouldn't be moving any. I mean, it may sway with wind and stuff. I mean, obviously it's a crane, it's picking up loads and everything else, but it has not moved at all. It doesn't have any loads on it. It's not moving. What its normal job would be. It has not moved at all since Saturday until today. So it definitely gives us reason for pause. You may have seen a little bit of heightened movement to head in that direction with the engineers to go see it, and it did start to go back the other way. But once again, that's movement we don't want to see.
And is the front crane any concern as well, or is
The
that
front
staying
crane is
still?
still very much so. If you, yesterday we talked about, originally we thought it was only the rear crane furthest from Canal Street that had the most obvious deflection in it and everything. When engineers came in and inspected the front crane, they said it is equally as damaged. It's not bent, but you have a lot of mechanical damage from the building collapsing, the concrete slabs and everything that are impinging against it. It's causing pretty critical damage. So it equally is in danger of collapse.
USA Today.
Can you speak to what engineers have advised you of so far? Anything that sticks out to you? Just give us an insight into what they are telling you.
You know, we've looked at several different options. One, to try and attach it back to the building in some way to stabilize it. They advised against moving it in any way, shape, or form, and didn't believe it was safe enough to even work around it. Originally, we brought in some big cranes to try, and we thought we would be able to grab it. And that was before we had the real, expert engineers on the scene, and they said that's not an option. You probably topple the crane that attached to it. So we've been looking at a bunch of different options, but they're doing calculations on what you can actually do.
If there is no way to secure the building before tropical disturbance comes into the area, you mentioned earlier the historic nature of the properties around it, would there be some kind of effort to protect things like the Sanger Theater or something in that area?
There's no protection for that thing coming down. One side of it, if you look at that crane shaped like a T, one side of that T is over 40 tons. There's nothing you could do. We are aware of it. We're working to see what protocols and what the engineers are going to suggest. This is a fairly new development that storm, just this morning, that storm wasn't where it is right now, obviously, in development and location and projected path.
And sorry for the graphic nature of this question, but can you describe the liquid any further in terms of color or what?
They use a remote camera to get it. In their opinion, it was something that they said it was some kind of fluid, and it's worth investigating. I mean, these guys, I cannot emphasize how proud I am of the men and women that are on the fire department who do this. Their expertise, they've been to 5 deployments, 6, counting Michael, deployments. They do this for a living, and they saw something that was not normal for a construction site and decided that it was a sample, and we certainly backed their opinion. We looked at the picture, so we went ahead and took a sample, and we'll see what the labs produce. We'll have it hopefully fairly quickly.
What's the likelihood that...
WCNO.
Superintendent, I'll give you a crack at this and then Homeland. Talking about the tropical depression, we make it. You said this building is very dicey. Could you expand a perimeter? There's got to be some kind of thought process going into how you can handle this.
Let me explain. So you saw when they told us how bad the first crane, the crane closest to Canal Street was after we had already set up a perimeter. Our perimeter increased very slightly for that front crane. We have a perimeter that would entail the entire length of that crane, both vertical and horizontal added together, plus 25%, plus another factor. That's the formula, the engineering formula for its your furthest reach. We added something more to that, and so we already have that. So no, we would pray that it don't come down and damage any of the buildings, but that kind of becomes beyond our control. This is not something, obviously, that we created, nothing we want, but our job is to prepare for and answer to disasters when they happen, and then mitigate the potential impact, and that's what we're doing right now.
Is there anything you want to add at this point?
I would just add, we're kind of writing the book on this right now. We keep hearing words like, impossible, unpredictable. Our team's working together. Collecting the sample today, we had NOPD working closely with the task force to teach them how to take a sample, on the fly. This is new space right now that we're working on.
Had anyone, had a member of the public or any city or any employees there reached out to the city at all, concerned about the construction and the way it was going? Had that happened at any point in time?
No.
Is there any way to gauge with the incoming weather the likelihood that there will be further collapse of this building with this incoming weather?
There is absolutely a very good likelihood of further collapse of this building. I have no doubt. We talked about it yesterday. As you get rain, it's going to add water to this building, which is a tremendous amount of weight. It's going to also add lubricant. So a lot of these pieces you see dangling precariously, friction's holding them in place. And so as more water hits it and it acts as a lubricant, you can easily see things start to slide off of this building. And our prayer is that it doesn't impact the cranes and cause something catastrophic. But suffice it to say, our evacuation zone is sufficient. Our struggle is people need to have common sense. If you see a barricade, don't cross it. Don't walk around this building. Don't come sightseeing. So we're asking for, once again, just like we do in the traffic, community, cooperation is critical in this. We believe if everybody stays out the evacuation zone, we're fine. I can't, once again, you can't speak for what other damage may be done to property, but remember, life and property.
Chief, can you refresh us on the specs of the crane? It's 270 tall. What's the T?
You're gonna test my memory here, but the tallest one is, I think, 308 to its very tip. The other one, I think, is 266. The boom on the tallest one that stretches out, the long arm that stretches out, is 164 and 131 on the short.
And what's the tonnage?
I'm gonna walk out of here and go make sure I gave you the right number, but we'll get that to you. But that, I'm almost 100% sure that's the numbers, because we did our calculations based on it. I was with the engineers when they were doing those calculations.
And what's the weight?
I don't have the weight of all the entire crane, the components of it, but that short boom that has the weights, the counterbalance part of it, is 40 tons.
Have there been discussions with some of the properties around this building about what could happen or
yes,
what they should expect?
as we evacuated them, they obviously got an explanation from us and an apology that we had to do this, but it's for their own safety, and everyone understood it. We did not have anyone complaining. Everyone understood. This is a very much a life safety issue at this point.
But I guess in terms of this disaster impending, is there kind of another message saying, hey, this might happen, if you have anything important, get this out or anything like that?
I'm sorry, what do you mean by that?
If
them getting something out of their building?
Right.
They're out already. There's no going back in the building and getting stuff. I will say this, we have worked very closely with people in these properties and help people get things that they need, either through the health department getting them medicines and medications that they couldn't go back in and get. So we're working as close as we can. You've heard the messaging that we've gotten people rooms, work through the responsible party to secure those and everything. But when you evacuate, you evacuate. Wish we could get that message to people in hurricane season more. We say evacuate, we mean get out. And so I do not in any way mean to make light of it, but no, we're not letting people go back in and get something.
And that also includes the vehicles that we know are still in the adjacent parking garage.
Thank you.
How will rescue efforts be going on until this evening?
They'll probably be going another couple of hours tonight at least. But once again, I can't emphasize enough, all investigations, I'll probably let the chief talk, but as investigations go where they take you, if you discover something that caused you to do something different, we'll operate as long as we have to. But right now, it'll probably go a couple more hours. We're trying to do a few more sweeps of the entire building to just make sure we haven't missed anything. I'm confident my team has done well, but in these type of situations, you can never be too confident when you haven't recovered everyone that you believe to be necessary.
Is there a time where we will move from? Is there a time where we will move from rescue and search operations?
Obviously.
Yeah.
Do we have an indication or an idea of when?
No, but I can just say this: in these type of operations, in this type of collapse, so I guess managing people's expectations. You hear of miracle recoveries and collapses, right? You hear, I believe it was Haiti. A week and a half out, they recovered someone. That was a single-story grocery store, right? The woman had food, she had water. A collapse like this, a pancake-type collapse of a massive structure like this, it becomes very, very small once you get past 3 days. But we're praying and hoping for the best. But that's the truth of where we are right now. Probably get under 10%. Yes, you get past 3 or 4 days.
Thank you all.
Okay, guys. City leaders.